Hi guys, so today we are looking at this Hitachi 3D80. It's another 3D80 video. I've done a few of these already. I do like this boombox. This is probably my favourite boombox of all time from the 80s, just for the sheer looks of it. It's just all these speakers at the front, it just looks awesome. It looks powerful. It looks as though it could really rock, and it did. The 3D woofer part of this gave a really good bass, but as the title suggests, I want to upgrade this one. Now, I've already gone ahead and done some upgrades to it. So what I've done to this already, I have converted the LED VU meter here, or the level meter, to stereo, because as from the factory, these are mono only. It's mirrored on each side. So I've converted this to stereo, so we've got proper left and right indication on there. I have also cleaned this because it was in a terrible state when I got it. Probably one of the worst ones I've seen. I'll put some pictures up on the screen of what it did look like. So yeah, that needed a good old clean. So I've taken it apart, cleaned it. I've taken these grills off and resprayed them. So the grills are back to looking great. I've also fitted an Amazon Echo Dot into this. I've done this on another video, so I haven't shown you the steps on this video because you can refer back to some other videos. So I'll put the links in down below. There's a link for fitting the Amazon Echo into one of these machines. It's not this machine, but it's exactly the same model. This is the second one I've done of that. Also a restoration video showing how to dismantle it and clean it. And also the stereo VU meter as well. So I've done a video on how to do that. So I'll put all those links in down below and you can take a look at that. What I want to do with this one is go one step further, and I want to upgrade the power on it. I want to put a bigger amplifier in it. I want to put better speakers into it. And I also want a rechargeable battery pack. So this came with a mains adapter or batteries, and batteries was D cells, to the big D cell batteries, and they didn't last very long. So what I'd like to do is put a battery pack in here, and I want to put a lithium ion battery pack in there to make that rechargeable, and basically just see what we can do with this, make it the best we can. Let's get a checklist going for the things that we want to do with this boombox. So things that I've already done and mentioned are clean this boombox. I have changed the level meters to stereo from mono. I've done the op amp upgrade, which involves swapping out the op amp for a newer version. I've installed the Echo Dot, and I've also serviced the tape deck and replaced the belts. The details for all those things are included in previous videos, which I've linked in down below. We also want to replace the speakers on this, so we'll add those to the list. I also want to replace the amplifier in this with a more powerful unit to match whatever speakers we fit. I also want a rechargeable battery solution in this, whether that's lithium ion or something else, I don't know yet. And we'll replace the power supply also, because the power supply in this already is only designed to power the low power amplifier that's already there. So I want to beef that up and make sure that can provide the current for whatever we put into it. So that's the list at the moment. I will add to that list anything else that we find along the way. In terms of the Echo Dot that I've put into here, if you look at the video below, it's the same as that. It's exactly the same model of Amazon Echo Dot. And the only difference is on the video that I did previously, I fitted some blue LEDs to the side, so down here and on the other side. And I've done that with this one, but I have done it a little bit differently. So if you watch that video, it shows that these LEDs actually come from the green channel LED on the Amazon Echo Dot. So the Amazon Echo Dot has RGB LEDs, red, green, blue. And the blue ones that I put on the previous one were on the green channel, which were, I determined it was more of an activity channel. So the activity channel on this one is actually at the top. I've fitted some red LEDs for the activity, and then these blue ones are kind of just a background color. They light up whenever it's active. So I just reset the Amazon Echo Dot now, and you can see what those LEDs look like. So when it first starts up, the blue LEDs will light up on the side of the casing. There they go. And the red activity LEDs are on the top. So if I just move this, you can have a look. That's these ones just here. It's a bit bright. I've mounted them behind the fascia, so I think that looks pretty good. And these ones light up when there's activity, so these ones will flash when you ask it to question or get it to play music or something. These are going to flash up at the top there, and then the ones on the side are just the just got a background color really. They're always lit every time it's active. So that's the only difference anyway. As I said, this video isn't going to be about the Amazon. The previous video explains all of that and goes into detail. But when you watch that, these LEDs are slightly different to what I've done on the other one. So with that in mind, I have ordered some parts for this, which I've no idea whether they'll fit or not yet. I haven't test fitted them. I've just bought ones which I think might be suitable. So let me show you those now. So these are the speakers that I would like to fit into here. As I said, I've not tried them, so I don't know whether they're going to fit yet, but they should be a similar size to what I've got in there. So these are Vibe Slick 5 speakers. These are car speakers, 4-ohm car speakers. These are mid-range and high frequency, so there's a tweeter in here. This original Boombox didn't have any tweeters. It had a full range speaker here with no tweeter, and then it had the bass unit in the center. So this should provide a clearer sound. It should be able to reproduce those high notes a lot better than the original machine did. And they're going to go in the end here. And then I've got these are Nubert speakers, quite a high quality speaker. I managed to get these cheap online, but yeah, the Nubert speakers, they go for thousands of pounds, the actual speaker cabinets themselves with these drivers in. So yeah, they're a good quality one, and this is just a bass speaker. So I'm going to put this into the center positions. These are quite heavy, so I'm going to have to figure out how to mount these. I've not got the amplifier yet or the battery pack. So as soon as I get those, I will put those on the video as well, and we can have a look at those. But the next thing I need to do basically is get the thing apart and see if these speakers can physically fit into the machine. Just before I take these speakers out, I thought it'd be a good idea just to run a quick frequency test on these speakers. Just be interesting to see what frequency response the unit produces at the moment, and then we can do the same at the end once we've changed the amplifier and changed the speakers, and see what the frequency difference is. I'm just using a simple audio frequency test video that I found on YouTube, and this just produces audio frequency from 20 Hertz up to 20 kilohertz. So I'm going to input those into the line input on this Boombox and play them through. At the same time, I've got a spectrum analyzer application running on my phone, which is sat in front of the unit, and this is going to show on there the frequency response that it receives through the microphone. So with that, and compare that with the frequency response after the speakers, and we can see what the difference is. Looking at the scale there, what I'm going to use is minus 60 dBs on the left. I'm going to take that as the minimum level required. So all the noise at the bottom, you can see that's just background noise in the room. Very quiet background noise, the noise of the computer, etc. Anything over minus 60 dBs, I'm going to take that as the frequency reading on here. So when you see the peak run along from the left to the right, anything over 60 dBs is what I'm looking for. So let's start this off now, and you'll see the peak rise on the left hand side. There it is, and you can see it's above the minus 60 dB line. And as the frequency scans along, you can see that peak picking out that frequency. So we'll let that run along to the right hand side. It should drop off right at the end. 10, 12, yeah, and it drops off. So that's the test done. We'll keep that and I'll compare that at the end and we can see what the two differences are. The middle range I'm expecting will probably be about the same, but I'm hoping that there'll be a little bit of extension on the low end and the top end with the new speakers in place. But we can compare those at the end. Back to the speakers. Let's open this up now and we'll take a look, see if there's actually any room to mount these. Now the wiring in here is not in place yet. It's all very messy and disorganized because most of this needs to be ripped out. Obviously the amplifier board and the power supply board is here. That needs to come out. And also the Amazon Echo Dot, which is here. That's only temporarily fitted at the moment because I don't know the location of everything. So the battery pack, amplifier, etc. might need a few things moving around, so none of this is permanent wiring at the moment. It's all a bit messy, but if you can look past that, what we're going to look at now is just to see whether these speakers can be replaced with the ones I've bought. So straight away I can see, and I knew this when I bought these, but I didn't have a lot of choice. This one has 6 mounting points around here for 6 screws, and the ones in the Hitachi only have 4, so they are in different positions. So even though the size looks pretty good, I mean there's room there, it can actually fit, the mounting holes are in the wrong place. Now I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to end up drilling the speaker, to be honest, and using the mounting holes here. I could also try and glue something in here to clamp it down. But size-wise, at least it does fit in there, like so. So that looks pretty good. And yeah, the other one's fine as well. So let's take a look. Actually, one thing we need to address also is the depth of this with the bigger magnet. So it may be that we need to cut, especially here, maybe cut some of this plastic away at the back of the cabinet. But we'll get them mounted in here first. Oh, let's see about these. Just move this along so you can see a bit better. This little board here, this is the LEDs, the Echo Dot LEDs that I've put in the side, the blue ones. And this is the mute LED. So that's what they are. Yeah, the posts here, these posts, this one and this one, are the fixing posts to actually fix this front fascia to the back of the cabinet. so I can't move those, and they are slightly in the way. I mean, that's in there now, but it's not quite lined up, as you can see at the front. It needs to go this way a little bit, but that post is in the way. So again, what I might have to do is modify the speaker. I don't want to get rid of this mounting post because that will be a lot of work trying to get the cabinet together. I mean, I could glue it together, but I'd like to retain the original fixings. So I may just have to take a little piece out the corner of the speaker. As long as I don't go too far, there shouldn't be a problem there. Maybe even take off the mounting lug there. In terms of the fixings, none of those will fit. So just looking at it, I don't think any of those mounting points are going to line up. The ones on here are slightly larger diameter, these mounting points. So again, I'm going to have to think of something. Maybe, like I said, maybe glue something to the back here with some fixing posts in it. Maybe I can get it connected that way. Okay, let me go and fettle a little bit with these speakers and see what I can come up with. So these center speakers, these are not going to be too much of a problem at all. So these are the mounting points, you can just see there, and they're just slightly wider than the basket, edge of the basket here. So the holes aren't going to line up. Even if I drill new holes into this casing, these mounting points are actually wider than the speaker itself. It's only just outside of these mounting points. So if I get these two, the basket within these 2 points, then these two are just not far enough out where the speaker will drop down, but it's literally 2 millimeters there. So I'm thinking I'll take a little bit of plastic off these mounts, just a millimeter, perhaps a millimeter off each one, just with a file, and this speaker will then drop in between the posts. And then what I can do, because this is almost flush there, I can just put a screw with a washer on top of that and it will clamp that speaker down. So I think the middle ones at least will be the easier ones to fit. So let me go and do that and come back and you can have a look at those. So I did just what I said I needed to do, just shave off a couple of millimeters off the posts, and this speaker was then able to just drop inside the posts. Put the screws back in with a washer which covered the edge of the basket, and these are really secure. I think they're going to be just fine like that. Now, with regards to the space in the case, I am going to need to cut a little bit. So you can see there, just catch on the edge of the magnets, and then this bit here. I think once it's in and it's leveled up, it'll clear the back, but it's not going to clear this bit. So I am going to need to cut a piece of plastic out of there. That's not going to affect anything because the circuit board here is raised up on these little posts. So fortunately, cutting that plastic there isn't going to need any further modification to the board. I've dremeled the case away as required for these speakers. As you can see there, the magnets are just coming up through this plastic area, probably about 5 millimeters or so each one. But that is going to be fine because the board is, as I said, it's on these standoffs here, and it will clear these magnets. So with that cut out, the front can screw on and it all clips back together. So that's pretty good. If they were any bigger, these magnets on the back, I think it would be a problem because you'd have the circuit board touching them, and also the cassette mechanism as well over here. That would probably be in the way. But these speakers, these model that I'm using, they're fine with just this little modification to the plastic. The Slick 5s that I was testing, they will fit, but it requires a lot of work. The mounting posts here for the front cabinet, this is where the front fits into the back of the chassis. These would need to be either moved, or quite a lot of the speaker needed to be cut out too much. I didn't want to start it and then render the speakers useless. So I bought these Slick 4s to test, and the screw holes mount up exactly. So no work required there. These just screw straight in. They are slightly smaller than I wanted, and there is a little gap around the edge there. I'll just show you the other side. There's a little gap around the edge here, but I don't think that's going to cause any problems, and you won't see that when the grill's on. So size-wise, yeah, I would have liked a little bit more cone area, probably like another 1/2 inch, but these are 4-inch speakers. The Slick 5s are 5-inch, and ideally what I'd like is a 4.5-inch speaker. That would have fitted just right. That's what the old ones were, but they just don't exist. And if they do, they're not a dual cone one. They're not the ones with a tweeter and the mid-range. They're a mid-range only, or a full range, and I really did want the tweeter in these. So yeah, this is looking pretty good speaker-wise. What I need to do now is sort out the amplifier and the power supply. So I'll get those bits together and we can try them out. I've been looking at suitable amplifier boards to put into this boombox to replace the one that's in there at the moment. I'm after something with a bit more power. These are both Class D amplifiers, and they're cheap. They came from AliExpress, and they're around about £30, English pounds each. This one has a lot more on it in terms of features than this one, and although this one I do like, it physically won't fit in the machine. I've tried it a number of ways and there's just nowhere to mount this. So this one I think is going to be the one that I'm using, but let me just talk about them both. The model number on this one is AH-A310. If you search for that, you'll see this online, and it's based on the TPA-3116D2 power amplifier. And there's 3 of those on here, and those amplifiers are 50 watts per channel, 2-channel amplifiers, 50 watts per channel. And the way this is arranged is that one channel is a 2x50 watt output, and the other channel is using these in bridge mode, so it's 100 watts and 100 watts. Now, this only has one input, as a single input via this jack plug here, 3.5mm jack plug. It also has a USB input as well, and it also has built-in Bluetooth on board. Now, the single channel then gets filtered for these different amplifiers. There's a bass channel, low frequency channel, which is these two, and that's bridge mode, so it's 100 watts per channel. But there is a low pass filter on there, so only the low notes, only the lowest frequencies will come out of the output here on the speaker output. The other channel, which is 2x50 watts, is basically a full range channel, but that's also filtered as well. It has the very low end notes taken off. So between the both of them, they can produce the full range. Now the Hitachi Boombox has its own filtering in there already. It's got the 3D bass boost option, which is the center 2 speakers for the bass boost, and it does boost it. It boosts it slightly, and it low pass filters as well. So it's a boosted low frequency. And then the other channel, the other speakers on the outside, are the full range speakers. And I think there's probably going to be a little bit of filtering there as well. I need to look at the circuit, but I'm guessing that again it will have the low pass part of that switched off. Now if I was to use this board, I wouldn't be able to use the onboard 3D boost system. I could just switch the bass speakers on and off, but I'd like to retain that circuit if I can. I'm going to test it and see what it sounds like, but I really want to retain the 3D and the surround. Actually, there's a surround button as well, which it's what most other companies call the 3D sound system. It's a spatial wide stereo effect to make it sound like the sound is coming from beyond the speakers on the box. And we can talk about that in a little bit. But this board, like I said, although it's got Bluetooth and everything on there, Bluetooth is incorporated in the Amazon Echo Dot anyway, so there's Bluetooth on board on this boombox anyway now. But yeah, it's a nice board this, and I've tested it and it works, it sounds good, but just physically won't fit, so that one is ruled out. So we move on to this one. Again, it's a 4-channel Class D amplifier. This though is not filtered at all, so there's 2 inputs, 1, 2 via these little sockets, and it amplifies and it goes through to the 4 channels at the back there. So stereo here, stereo, and 4 channels, and that is it. So using this, I'll be able to output the preamp level from the boombox board, import it into this, and then onto our new speakers. So the name of this one is, if you want to search it, is XH-M180, and that's based on the TDA7850 power amplifier chip. And there's just one of those chips under the heatsink here, so it's a 4-channel power amp chip. There's a few components on here which I want to glue down. There's a choke here which is a little bit loose, so I'd like to, especially with this being a portable device now, I want to put some glue under there and just keep that secure. I'll probably do the same on these large capacitors here, just to stop them moving around. And this does fit, so there's a number of places I can fit this into the case. I'll show you that now. So this is our case, and it's the back section of the case. We're looking into it there. What I've done is I've already removed, with the Dremel, I've removed some plastic dividers here. These were in place for the linear transformer to fit into from the old board. So I've taken those out to make some more room here, and I'm not sure how I'm going to fit this yet, but there's room to put it in the back like that. So right at the back of the case. Could fit it onto that back wall, or we could equally fit it to the top like so, or put it onto the bottom. Probably the bottom is the least favourite because you're wasting some space there because of this standoff here. So maybe the roof might be a good idea. At the back like that. But I need to test fit everything else in here first, just to see how much room I've got, and then we can decide. So the power output on this one, although it's not quite as loud as the other one that I just showed you, the larger one, it is going to be plenty loud enough. So the original amplifier, in the Hitachi Boombox, the power rating for that amplifier was 3 watts per channel for the full range speakers on the outside, and 4 watts per channel for the bass speakers, the 3D bass boost speakers in the center. So that's 3 watts and 4 watts, that's RMS, and that is at a rating of 10% distortion, or total harmonic distortion. That's what amplifiers are normally rated in. Now the power on this one changes depending on what the input voltage is. Now I'm going to be using 12 volts, which is within the specified range, but doesn't actually have a rating, power rating for 12 volts. At 14.4 volts, the rating is 25 watts. That's RMS, that's per channel, and that is at 10% distortion. So I'm guessing 20 watts RMS per channel. So a lot more than the original ones. I'm going to be happy with that. I don't need any more than that. And the speakers are only rated up to 50 watts anyway. So this is a circuit diagram for the Hitachi, and I'm not sure how clear it is on this camera. It's not the best camera at close-up, but I've highlighted the signal paths just to make it easier to see. So this area here, this is the preamp, this is the op amp, which combines all of the input signals via the selector switch. So basically whatever you're running, radio, tape, source, all ends up here and outputs as a single stereo signal. Then goes to this board, which is the volume control and graphic equalizer. Comes out of there, and at this point it's just full range, no filtering on the output at all. At this point it splits. So this green line is the 3D bass boost system, and this is the circuit for it here. It's very simple, just a handful of components to boost that and put in the low pass filter. And then the green line carries on and goes into this amplifier, which is the bass boost amplifier, and then onto the speakers up there. The orange line is for the full range speakers, so the ones on the outside. Comes down here, basically goes through a little filter here. There is a high pass filter, but it's only to knock out the very low notes. And then that goes into the other amplifier, stereo amplifier, and onto the speakers. So fairly straightforward. There is another section in here which is the surround section. It calls it surround, and like I said before, a lot of other manufacturers will call that the 3D system or the wide system or the spatial stereo system. And what that does is that it takes a little bit of the output from the opposite channel, then it runs it through a phase inverter and a filter, it's a high pass filter, and then imports it back into the input on the amplifier. If it's the left-hand channel that we're talking about for the surround, it will take a little bit of the right-hand output from the right-hand speaker, filter it, phase invert it, and then put it back into the left channel. And it does the same for the opposite channel. So I'm not sure at the moment whether I'm going to use the components that are on board to do that, to do the surround and the 3D, or whether we're going to produce something else on a circuit board ourselves to do that, because it's fairly easy to do, and there's even proprietary chips that you can buy, do all that for you, just all on board on the chip. It'll do that spatial wide effect without worrying about how to connect this up. We can just put it into the signal path. So what I'm going to do is get this amplifier wired up, get it put into the box with the speakers, and then we'll try the 3D and the surround, which are on the board already, and see what they sound like. If it sounds good, then we'll use that. If we think we can improve it, then we might build something else. I've just done a little drawing here showing you how that system works. So this is the surround system that it's called on the Hitachi, and these are our inputs here from the preamp, so left and right stereo inputs into the amp, out to the speakers. When we switch on the surround system, it takes the output of the right channel from the speaker, runs it through a phase shift and high pass filter, and then imports it back into the amplifier of the left hand side. So the amp actually combines the source with this phase shifted signal from the other channel into that amplifier, and the same with the other side. Now that phase shift and filter, this is what it looks like. These are the components used to do that, and there's just a switch here. So on the top where you've got your surround switch, this is just switching that on and off, and it's importing that signal from the other speaker, which then phase shift and filters before it goes to the amp. So we could just recreate this, but there is a circuit that you can buy called a PT2387. There's a few chips that you can buy to do this, but the one that I've looked at, which I might buy, is the PT2387. That basically does the same thing. It's wide spatial effect. They all work the same way. They take a little bit of signal from the opposite channel, run it through a phase shift and a filter, and then put it back into the amplifier on the opposite channel. So I'm thinking that's all this chip does, but it's a nice simple little chip to buy if we need to use that. Now what we're looking at here is the two main boards which are in the Hitachi Boombox. This board is primarily the power supply and the amplifier, and this board is doing everything else. On here you've got the radio, you've got the selection switches. You've got the tape control system on here as well. You've also got the graphic equalizer and the volume control. This is attached to this board. Now what I want to do in this, or what I need to do, is get rid of this board altogether, this one on the left here. So power supply and amplifier, we're replacing both of those, so that should be able to go. But there are a few components on here which are not connected with the power supply and the amplifier. Now, for one, it's the motor control. So the tape motor control and the speed control, because it's got high-speed dubbing, this tape deck, so it runs at 2 speeds. This is all on this board as well. The way it works, you see it here, this is the wire from the main board, from the tape system. It comes across here, basically just jumps on this board, handful of components to do the motor control, picks up 12 volts from the power supply, and then this socket goes back to the tape deck. So it's just an isolated little circuit of components there. So I could either crudely cut that out of there and use that bit of circuit board, or we can just unsolder those components, put them on a little board ourselves and mount that somewhere else. The other thing that's on here is the surround circuit. The phase shift and the filtering is done here just before the amplifier chip. So again, if I'm going to use that little chip, the PT2387, then I don't need those components and we can forget about that. I'll use the chip. But if I am going to use those components, I'll probably lift those components off here and put them on a little board. Don't know exactly what to do there yet. I'll wait till I get that chip, see what they sound like, and can decide then. Here are the components for the power supply solution that I would like to incorporate into here. So first of all, this is the replacement power supply, the mains power supply, and this is rated at 12 volts at 5 amps. So that is going to be sufficient for what we need. This is going to be a lot more than what the previous one was. I'm not sure exactly the current for the old one, but I'm guessing it's probably about 1 amp at max. So this one is going to be just fine, and it's quite small, so it's good. We can hide that away in the box somewhere. And the battery solution, the rechargeable battery solution, is this that I managed to get. So this is, again, it's off a Chinese site, and it was cheap. It was probably £26, something like that, and it contains 15 18650 cells. So there's a lot of capacity there. This is rated at 12 volts. The output is fixed at 12 volts. It has a current rating of 50,000 milliamp hours or 50 amp hours. I'm not sure if that is exactly right. It sounds a lot to me, but I haven't actually worked it out, and I don't know the capacity of each of these cells without opening this up. But I've tested it on the amplifier, tested it on this amplifier that we've seen with the speakers, and it runs for a long time, and I don't see any sign of it dropping in voltage at all. So for the amount of time that I've used it, it's a good few hours, it didn't drop at all. So it's going to be good enough for sure for this boombox. There's the output lead, and then there's the charging lead. This is the charger that came with it. I've opened it up because I wanted to see what was inside there. It's a rectifier going into the switch mode circuit, small transformer there, and then there is the charging chip on the other side. So I think what I'll do is I'll just mount this in another box rather than mount this one in there. I'll mount this in a little project box and put that in the boombox as well. So all we need is a mains input and then output to the battery. Comes with a little LED as well to show when it's charging, so I can recreate that on the back of the box. I can mount that LED somewhere else, or another LED. That'll be fine. Let me just show you the case of where I plan to put this. So this is the old battery compartment here. I've taken the spring terminals out, but this is where the 8D cells would have gone originally. And this space here is where the mains cord is coiled up, so there's space for the UK plug there, and then the cable coiled up here, and that was really neat. You know, you put the battery compartment lid on and it's all flush, it's all contained in there. Take the lid off, pull the lead out, and you can plug it in, or you've got your batteries here. And what I was originally thinking was mounting this in the battery compartment here, cutting this out, cutting this bit of plastic out and mounting it inside there, and then still retaining this area here for the cable. But I've actually rethought that, and inside, just turn this round, inside here, this space here lends itself quite well to the battery pack. And that was almost made for the job there. And there's still room for the Amazon Echo Dot here. And I'm not going to be, I originally thought, well, I'll make the battery pack so you can easily take it out, but I don't need to take it out. I'm only going to be taking it out when it fails, so that's hopefully a long way down the line. So I think that's where it's going to go. And that will then leave that compartment at the back empty. I can put in a new mains cable and a UK plug and fit that in the back. I will need some sort of switch for the DC to AC supply. There was a switch on the old board, so I might take that switch and put it back on the back, or put a new switch on there, because when I plug it into the mains, I'd like it to start charging the battery, but then the switch will switch between the 12 volts from the battery or the 12 volts from the internal power supply, you know, our new switch mode power supply we're putting in there. So I'll be able to switch between the two. I'm thinking I'd like a battery level meter on the back as well, on the back of the case, maybe the front of the case, maybe the back of the case, just to show the level of the battery, and that charging light as well. When it's on charge, we'll put that charging light on the back somewhere. So what I'll probably do now, between now and the next video, is fit the amplifier, fit the power supply, secure that battery pack in place, maybe put some battery level meter or charging LED on the back, and just get as much of that as I can done, and then I'll come back and we'll review that. What's been happening with this upgrade? I've done quite a bit of work to the chassis on this, so we had to cut out some of the plastic like you saw for the speakers. The other items mounted in quite well. So this is where the Amazon Echo Dot is going to live. It's not actually glued in yet. The battery pack is there. This is secured in. The amplifier is there, so this is bolted underneath the top plate. Space for it there. Also the vents are at the back of the unit there, so I'm thinking with the airflow from the speakers and the vents at the back, this is going to create some airflow past this heatsink. So feeling that it's quite warm, but I think when it's closed up and we've got the airflow, I think it's going to be just fine. There is the mains power supply here. I'm not sure whether you can see that, but this is the 5 amp 12 volt supply that is going to be the mains input. And I've also, on the back of the unit, I've also put a battery level meter. So I'll put a picture up on the screen. It's can't move this just at the moment, but there's it's a battery level meter just to show the charge in the battery, and that will switch on when it's on battery power. So the original switch at the back for DC and AC, that is still there, and that's going to switch between this internal power supply and the battery pack. As soon as it's plugged into the mains, then the battery pack will start charging. The battery charger I put here, so this came as a plug pack. I've taken that apart and put it in this box. So the charger is in there, that's mounted in. All these wires, these white wires, you can see this is just temporary. This is the power supply routing, so just so I can test it. But these all been neatened up once I'm finished. The main board here, this is connected up at the moment and it works. So this is all the volume and the graphic equalizer and all selection options on here. This is all connected up right now. The only thing that I haven't done yet is the surround system. So the surround spatial stereo wide setting, I'm going to put that in between the signal path between here and the amplifier when I've built it, but I'm just waiting for the parts to come for that. The 3D also, the 3D system, the way that it worked on the old amplifier was to mute the audio. So it filtered it and it boosted it slightly, then it sent into the amplifier board. The way that it worked, that when you switched it off, it muted that channel, it muted that amplifier on the board. So because I'm using an amplifier that I can't mute, I'm going to have to figure out a different way there, whether I just use this switch to drive a relay and break the signal path, I don't know yet. But at the moment it's working without the surround and with the 3D. So I'm calling it the 3D. It's these center 2 speakers. These are connected up all the time at the moment, but I might put it on that switch so I can defeat the 3D. The other things, the motor control, the tape motor control. So basically I've disconnected everything on this board apart from the motor control. So this area here in the black outline, this is the part with the motor control on it. So I think what I'm going to do is just cut that out of the board and just use that as is. There's no point in taking those off and recreating that. But yeah, everything else is working, and it sounds really nice. Obviously got the echo dot in there. I've changed the wake up word on it to Ziggy rather than, you can see it just lighting up there, rather than the normal wake up word, which is Alexa. So I might, you do get a couple of wake up words available from Amazon, and one of them is Ziggy. So what I might do is the grills on this I sprayed so that the, actually I'll go and get one. So the grills on this I resprayed, and they're just black now. So the original logo, which was the bass boost, the 3D woofer twin drive on there, that has disappeared now because I painted over it. And the grills look okay black, they look quite nice. But what I might do, because I'm using Ziggy as the wake up word, I might call the Boombox Ziggy. I might actually brand it and spray a logo on here with Ziggy on it. I don't know yet, but that might be fun. But I'll show you it working. So if I say the word, if I say Ziggy, what time is it?
The time is 11:37 a.m.
Ziggy, play Spotify.
Okay, here's Spotify.
And you've got the, obviously the graphic equalizer is working as well on here, so we can adjust that. Ziggy, stop. So left to do on this, cut out that motor control board and put it in the case somewhere, create the surround board, and I have that chip, and basically try and get everything back in the case. I need to sort out this wiring and just tidy this up a bit as well. I've fitted all the components back into the cabinet and tidy the wiring up a little bit. So this is where all the final placement of the items is going to be. The amplifier is here. It's mounted upside down on just under these cassette decks. And then we've got the power supply here. This is the mains power supply. And we've got, this is just a little junction box I've put in. All the power cables just go into this junction box here. So we've got the mains 12 volts, the battery 12 volts. We've got the output from the switch. They all come into here and get connected to where they need to go. And then Down here we've got the power supply for the Amazon Echo. This is a 12 volt to 5 volt converter. And we've got the battery pack here, a rechargeable battery pack. And if you can just about see it, but here, this is the charger. So this is the mains charger that we took out of that plug pack, put it into a box. That is what that is there. And I think everything at the top is pretty much as it was. I've got the LED lights, of course, from the Amazon. Got the buttons around the back from the Amazon as well. And that little motor control board that we were having trouble with from the main board that I had to cut out. Managed to sneak that in under the cassette decks. So it's actually around the back under the cassette decks. Now if we look at the front panel, we've obviously got our speakers mounted in here. I've got the little board here, which is the extra level meter for the left-hand side. So the right-hand side is as it was before. This cable plugs into the main board when the front gets closed up. That's for the right-hand side, and the operation LEDs, which are here, the power LED and the 3D and the surround. And then this little board, as I said, this is for the left-hand channel. So this is a duplicate of what's on this board. I've got the separate feed here from the left-hand channel coming into it, and that's what gives me the stereo level meter. And we've got other boards on the end here, which are for the blue Amazon LEDs. Those little boards at the side. And the little board there, this is for the mute LED on the front. Obviously got our speaker wires here tied on, so they're secured, and go through and connect to the amplifier. So that's everything inside, and it all fits quite well, to be honest. The only problem was the speakers. I had to cut out some of the casing here. I was worried that it was going to hit that, which is the motor on the cassette decks. Thought it might hit that, but it just clears it. There's just enough room. So next what we'll do, put it together. We'll give it a quick test, just as it is at the moment. You can see how it looks. And then we need to address the 3D and the surround options which are missing on here. I am going to put the grills back on this, but I think it looks good without the grills. I'm worried that the cones themselves would get damaged, especially with moving this around, with it being a portable device. But I am going to put the grills back on here, but I do think it looks good without the grills. And everything's working. The radio, the tape, the line in, which has got the Amazon Echo on there, of course. And the battery's working as well, so the battery and the charger. So let me just show you around the back. So a few changes around the back. One of them is these buttons here. These are the ones for the Amazon Echo Dot. So these just represent the buttons that are on the front of the case. We've got the plus and the minus, the mute button, which also puts a red LED on the front. And then we've got the select button here, or the wake up button. So if we want to wake up the Amazon without saying the wake up word, we can press this button and that will do the same thing. We've got our DC-AC power switch, which is the same. That was there before, although now when it's on AC it charges the internal battery, and we've got a charge light here as well. So this charge light came from the original plug pack charger, which I took apart. I just brought the LED to the back here, and we've also got the battery level meter here. So if I turn the light off and switch it on, you can see the battery level meter there, and that stays on whilst it's in battery mode. If we switch over to AC, then that switches off. The power cable is retained in the battery compartment like it was on the original machine. So there's a power plug, and if I plug that into the mains, we see that the charge light comes on there. So I think this has turned out quite well so far. It's retained all of the original boombox look, but it's got obviously a few other modern features. This is the LED channel on the front of the Amazon Echo, and of course the blue LEDs on the side here as well, which kind of light up whenever it's doing something. So there's a couple of things left to do on this. We need to add in the surround circuit so that we can use this surround. The LEDs come on for these features, but they're not actually doing anything at the minute. The 3D option is always on, so I need a method to defeat that. And the surround, that just doesn't do anything at the moment. That will, when I get the little chip, I'll be able to create a board and we can test that out. So I've bought the PT2387, this is this chip here on the breadboard, so we can plug that in and try that, see what it sounds like. This should generate the wide sound field that the original surround button did on this boombox. Also, I wanted to let you listen to just what the sound was like from the boombox channels. So that's the bass channel in the center here and the main speakers on the outside. I'll just show you what they sound like from the boombox circuitry itself. So this is this wire here. This is I'm going to call them the bass speakers and the main speakers, and this is what I've labeled here. So these two channels here are going to the amplifier. This is our new amplifier. So main channel goes to these speakers on the outside, bass speakers, the ones in the center here. And this wire here is the one coming out of the boombox. So this is the original circuitry, the original channels that we had in the boombox. And I'm going to show you why I don't think I'm going to use this, because there's a little bit of filtering going on already. So first of all, let me show you the main channel. I'm connecting up to the main output channel from the boombox. That has a high pass filter included in there. I'll put the circuit up on the screen. And all this does is just take off the very low notes for the main speakers. So on the original boombox, it had different speakers here. They were full range, just as these ones are. But all it did was just take the bass off. And that just means when you turn this up, put the bass up, these speakers aren't going to distort because of that heavy bass on these speakers. So straight out the boombox, these are already filtered, and that low bass frequency is just cut off on those speakers. So I'll let you hear what that sounds like. They're connected up at the moment here. Ziggy, play Spotify.
Okay, here's Spotify.
And that already sounds better than the original boombox speakers did, because you got the high frequency tweeter here and these are better quality speakers. This already sounds better. But as I said, the bass notes on this are just taken off. There's a little bit of filtering, and that's fine. I'm going to want to do that on these speakers, because if there's too much bass, too much volume, these are going to distort. That's what the bass speakers are for in the center. Okay, so that's the main channel. Ziggy, stop. So what I'll do now is we'll connect up the bass channel to the bass speakers, and you can hear what that sounds like. So I'll disconnect the mains. I just need to ground those out because we're getting obviously the hum on that. Ground those out so they're quiet. And then this is the bass channel here, which are grounded out, so we'll take those off there. And plug in the boombox channel. Nothing's shielded here, so that's why I'm touching this and it's making a noise, but we're not going to have that once it's back in the box and it's all wired up properly. So now we've got the bass channel. No, we haven't. Got on the wrong ones. Right. We've got the bass channel coming out of the boombox, going to the bass speakers here. This is the bass channel on our amplifier. So that, again, this is filtered. So the original filtering in the boombox was when you press the 3D button on the top. these speakers came on and it was just the bass notes. So I'll let you hear what that sounds like. Ziggy, play Spotify. And you can hear there's no high frequency or mid-range there, it's just the bass notes. And if we plug our main speakers in as well, Ziggy, stop. So that's pretty much the original wiring. We haven't got the spatial surround circuit there because that got lost with the other board. So this is just the high pass filter on these and the low pass filter on these. Now, I think it was a bit of a waste because the 3D system on this unit, the original 3D system, it was a low pass filter on the bass speakers, but the 3D button just muted the amplifier channel. So these were switched on and off. You either had the low notes or you had nothing at all. And what I would like to do is put a higher frequency through these. So low notes, but the cutoff is going to be higher frequency because these speakers can handle a higher frequency. And I can show you that now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the main channel through the bass speakers and you'll hear the difference. So it might be easier if I just mute those again. That's the main channel. This is the bass channel. So let's put that back on. Ziggy, play Spotify. So that's the bass or the 3D channel coming through the bass speakers. But if I switch this up to the output of here that was meant for these speakers, and they don't sound too bad at all. So we've still got a little bit of high pass filtering because it's meant for these speakers, but you can hear there that these can actually reproduce a lot higher frequency than what this boombox is outputting on that channel. So I don't want the low pass filter to be as aggressive as that. I'm going to put higher frequency through those. Not all frequency because it won't sound nice, but certainly higher than what it is. So what I'm thinking is, rather than just have these switching on and off with the 3D button, I'm thinking these should be on all the time. When you press the 3D button, it does something else, gives you something extra. And I'm thinking perhaps a loudness boost. You know the old loudness buttons that you used to have on equipment? And all that did was increase the bass and the treble. And I've got a little board that does that. That's this one. And that's exactly what it does. It boosts the bass and the treble by either 6 dBs or 9 dBs, depending on how these switches are set. So I'm thinking this might be a good extra for this machine. So you're going to get a lot more sound reinforcement through these speakers because they're on all the time, and they're also giving you a bit higher frequency. When you switch on that circuit, it'll just give everything that boost. And I think the 3D button will sound good for that. So basically it's going to be a loudness button rather than a 3D button, but I think that would be good. So now what we'll do, the PT2387 chip, I'll show you that. This is the surround, the pseudo surround chip that gives this wide stereo field. So let me just show you that. I'm going to plug our main speakers into the output. Okay, and the input is going to be from our main channel, so the outside speakers there. Okay, now this chip has a pass-through mode when it's switched off, and then it's active when it's switched on, so you'll be able to see that blue light there. That is the when it's on or off. So when it's off, it's in defeat mode, just a pass-through, so it should sound just as it did before. Okay, and then when I press this switch, it'll do the wide field effect. See if you can hear it. You might not be able to pick it up on the camera too well. So that's off. That's on. I'm not sure how well that'll pick up on the camera, but it does sound correct. It sounds as what the original surround button did. So that is going to work for the surround, and I think for the 3D button we should use this circuit. Now this is based on an NJM2150A chip, and that is all that chip does. It just boosts the bass and treble frequency. What I'll do is I'll connect that up now and we'll be able to have a listen. What I'm going to do is the output channel for the main speakers, I'll route them through here and the bass, and then we'll put this into the signal path, and we'll basically boost the treble and the bass on all the speakers together. So what we need is the input, which is this one. And power. Okay, it's all very hummy because of the non-shielded cables. Apologise for that. And then the output, we are going to run to both sets of speakers. So main speakers and tangled up here. Bass speakers. And this is our outputs. Okay, that should be it. Well, the way these switches work, when these are off, this is treble, bass, and this is the bypass. So when this is switched on and these switches are off, it's 6 dBs. So it's adding 6 dBs to the treble, 6 dBs to the bass. And when these are pushed in, that increases it to 9 dBs. So we'll leave it on 9 so you can hear the difference, and I'll switch it on.
You've got me saying words in my head.
Okay, so that's with it off. I'll switch it on.
And it's the way that you look at me. Makes me feel like I can't breathe. It ain't right, it ain't right, it ain't right, it ain't right.
be able to hear that. So that's off. On. Off. On. So that sounds quite dramatic, I think. The bass and treble amplified. I think that 3D button to switch this on and off, I think is going to be a good shout. And then the surround button, we can wire in this chip here. Now, one problem I've got with this is the buttons on the top of the unit, the 3D button and the surround button. The 3D button is going to be okay for this. Let's just switch that off. The 3D button is going to be okay with this because it's a latching switch, and that's the type of switch that it is on top of the unit. The switch on top of the unit also operates these LEDs, and that's still connected up. There's multiple contacts on these switches, and one of them is the LEDs. So I didn't want to lose that if possible, but I can wire up the contacts on this switch to the one up there. So 3D on and off, no problem at all. The PT-2387, however, is just a momentary switch to switch it on and off. So I'm going to have to either convert the switch at the top to a momentary switch. Instead of it latching, it's just going to be a momentary. And then, of course, the LED would only be momentary as well if I kept the original LED circuit. So I'm going to have to rewire that LED to the operation LED of the 2387. So momentary switch, press, LED comes on, and I'll wire up this LED to the LED here. So I hope you followed that. Basically what I'm doing is putting new functionality to these two switches on here, these two options on this boombox, the 3D and the surround, by using the PT-2387 and this board here. Now the two switches, the surround switch and the 3D switch, this circuit diagram here shows the contacts for each one. So we've got the surround switch on the top there in green, and it's got 3 contacts. The bottom contact there is the LED. You can see it going round to the green LED in the left hand side there. And then the pink one is the 3D switch. That's just got one contact for the 3D system. It basically switches in a little transistor which muted the amplifier in the old system, and it's got one contact for the LED as well. So yeah, I think I'm going to have a little fiddle with the switches and see if I can get these switches to, or at least one of them, to operate momentary rather than a latching, and then I can wire in this circuit. Unless I can think of something else, I might have a look around, see if there's anything else we can do there. So even with these two little circuits in place, I still want a higher frequency for these bass speakers. The sound on this one is okay, I think, because it's just got that very low frequency taken off there, and I think that's fine. But for the middle ones, I do want a higher frequency, so I'm going to take the output before the low-pass filter that's built into the system. So I'm going to ignore that. I'm not going to use that low-pass filter. I'll just take the feed from before that, and then I could put my own tone control or something inside. So I will get this together, get this in some sort of order on a circuit board with some proper cables, and then we can come back and test that. So I've been getting on with replacing all these cables with screened cables rather than the noisy ones that I had on there before. And yeah, it's getting there. It's almost complete. Little board there with the surround chip on it. So that's complete. And it's just a question of getting all this in the cabinet soon. I'll just run through the units that I've put into this machine. This is how the configuration looked from the original Boombox. So we've got the Boombox audio out, which is literally just split on the board. The signal path is just split at one place, and some of it goes to the bass speakers, some of it goes to the main speakers. Now the main speakers, it runs through a high-pass filter. As I said before, it's just to knock off those very low bass notes off the full range speakers. And then it goes onto the surround circuit, which again, I've shown you that's the where it takes a little bit of the output from the opposite channel and feeds it back into the amplifier. And that was just from the surround switch on the top. So it was either on or it was bypassed. And then it went onto the amp. Now the bass speakers, that side of the signal went to a low pass filter, and then it went to the 3D switch, which again was on the top there. And the 3D switch would either switch it on or it would mute that channel altogether. So when the 3D was off, the center speakers, the bass speakers, were not doing anything at all. And when it was on, then you got the low pass filter through those speakers, so a little bit of extra bass through those speakers, which I thought was a waste of those speakers. So this is how the configuration looks now. This is how I've done it. And that same audio out from the Boombox, it's a full range audio out, that's before any of the filters, goes into the loudness board, I'm calling it. It's actually, I think it's described as a tone exciter board. And what it does is it just boosts the low and high frequency by 9 dBs. And that essentially is a loudness addition or loudness button, as used to have on the old machines. So the way I've wired that in is that affects all of the tone control after that. So whatever you get through the bass speakers and the main speakers, this is an overriding loudness control, and that is controlled by the 3D button on the top there, the red 3D button. So after that, it then goes to an isolating splitter. So rather than just split the signal path, I've put it into a powered splitter, and that way you're not losing any of the signal path. It's not going to reduce that signal by splitting it. We'll have the same output on both outputs. So the main speaker output from that goes to the PT2387 chip circuit that I've done, that little board. I've put a PT2387 on there, and that is controlled by the surround switch on the top. Now I did manage to get the surround switch to operate in momentary rather than a latching position. I had to take the switch apart, and I put some pictures up on the screen of that, but once you took it apart, there's like a little metal clip in there which you can take out, and that basically breaks the latching part of it and just remains as a momentary switch, which is what I needed for this circuit. This circuit relies on a momentary switch. So I've wired up the LED, the operation LED, from that chip directly to the LED on the front of the unit, the surround LED, and using that momentary switch, that seems to work fine. So after that surround circuit, I've also put a final tone control board in the circuit, and it's not necessary, but I wanted an overall tone control so that if the signal was too bassy or it started distorting or the level wasn't quite right, I could just fine-tune that output just before it goes into the amplifier. And these controls are hidden around the back. When you open the battery compartment, you can see those controls there, and it's basically just a fit and forget. You wouldn't be using them all the time, but I just wanted them there just in case I wanted to just adjust that level slightly. And it also means I can boost the level as well if I need to, so that the level going into the amplifier is the best that it can be and as high as it can be without it distorting. So the amplifier is going to give it its best output from that signal. So I've put a tone control on both sides. You can see there the bass speakers, that comes out the splitter into the tone control, and that goes into the amp as well. So each side of the amp has its own tone control board, just so I can just tweak those levels just before they go into the amplifier. But the good thing about this is that the bass speakers are always on. So you have output from the main speakers and the bass speakers. When the 3D button is pressed, then everything is just boosted slightly. So the main speakers will have the treble boosted, and the bass speakers will have the bass boosted. So that's what I've ended up with. That's the final design here. So I'm just going to continue on tidying up these cables, getting everything fitted. The tone control boards, the XH-M180 tone control boards, they're very sensitive on the power that I've found. So all the other boards I've fitted are not too bothered, but the tone control boards, yeah, there's like a little buzzing from the power supply on that. So what I want to do is just put in some isolating power supplies and wire them up to those, and that should reduce that noise or get rid of that noise altogether. So once that's done, I will come back, but hopefully that's in a position now where we basically wrap up this project and we can give it a final test. So everything I showed you on those diagrams is now installed into this boombox. Just about. There's not a lot of room in there anymore, and it was a little bit difficult to arrange everything just so the case would close up, but it's there, it's closed, and it's all done now. There is a couple of little noises still. As I mentioned, the tone boards are sensitive to things getting plugged into them, really, not just the power supply, it's noise on the audio as well, and you might just be able to hear there's a couple of little crackles and things going on in the background. They don't increase with the volume, so as soon as something's playing you don't really hear that, so I'm not too bothered. But I have put some power isolators in there and it reduced the noise a little bit, but it's still there, so I may revisit that at some point. But for this video, this is this box complete. So before I give you a final rundown of what's in there and show you inside, I want to do the frequency test again. So let's get on with that and we can compare the two. I'm not sure whether there'll be that much difference. To me it sounds a lot better, but we are still relying on the circuitry in the original boombox. So the original audio circuits, the graphic equalizer, the volume, the selector switch, all of that is still the original boombox. We've replaced the op amp, so that will help a little bit, but everything else is as it was in the audio path. So let's run this frequency test now, and then we can compare those two. And as before, we'll take the cutoff as 60 dBs. So that's running up through the frequency. That's 1 kilohertz. Five kilohertz. 15 and 20. So let's stop that now and we'll run through the results. Here are the results from the spectrum analysis that was taken, and I've screenshotted each one at the minimum frequency and the maximum frequency, and this is from before the upgrade and after the upgrade. So the top two graphs that you see there, they're the results prior to the upgrade, the original speakers, and I've screenshotted that at the 60 dB mark, or as close as I can get to it. The resolution in the recording isn't good enough where I can get it exactly on the line, but it's close enough. So if we look at the top left, that is 67 Hertz it's showing, so that's the minimum frequency that appeared just over that 60 dB line, or on the 60 dB line. It's recorded there, it's minus 59 dBs, 67 Hertz. And the top right graph, you can see the maximum frequency is 17.438 kilohertz. Now if we compare that to the bottom graph, the bottom left, that's showing the minimum after the upgrade. Now the app that I've got here automatically shows the highest peak and puts the labels on it. So my peak that I'm looking at is actually the one that I've ringed on the left hand side. That's the peak that travelled across left to right as the sweep. So I'm ignoring all the other ones there, that's just background noise. And if we draw a line down from that, we can see that it's roughly about 27 Hertz. So much better on the lower end frequency. If we look at the top end, which is bottom right, this again is after the upgrade, new speakers, it's recorded there at minus 58 dBs, 17.250 kilohertz. So that's very similar to the one above. In fact, if you take into account that the snapshot was taken on the bottom graph at a slightly higher level, minus 58 dBs, if that was dropped down to minus 60, I'm guessing that the frequency would probably be about the same, because the level is dropping at that point. As the frequency gets higher, the level is dropping down. So the bottom one, the minus 58 dBs, is actually a slightly higher level. And I think once that drops, probably in the next frame of that video, you would see a very similar frequency. So that's interesting. I thought the top end was going to be a lot better with those tweeters, but actually it turns out that the frequency is very similar. But we do have the better low end, and of course we've got a lot more power available on these speakers, so there is a benefit to the speakers even if the top end is very similar. Next, I'm just going to show you where all the parts are located inside this unit, all the extra parts that I've fitted. So this is a picture from the inside. I'm just going to go around and highlight all the different pieces so you can get an idea of what's in there. First item is the amplifier that we fitted, then the battery pack, battery charger, and then we've got the power supply. This is the 12 volt mains driven power supply. Of course, we've got the speakers, main speakers and the bass speakers. Then we've got our tone controls. These are the two boards that the outputs run through just before it goes to the amplifier. So we've got one for the bass, one for the main speakers. Then we have our 3D board. This is the board that increases the bass and treble. Then we've got our surround board, surround circuit. And this is the board that contains the PT2387 IC. Next is the splitter. This is the op-amp driven splitter board. We've got our power meter, which is on the back, a little LED power meter for the battery gauge. That's around the back of the unit. We've got two isolators. So these are 12 volt DC to DC converters, but they're isolating converters. These were put in just really to help minimize some of the interference, some of the noise that I was getting. It didn't eradicate it completely, but it has helped. And I've got one of these converters on the Amazon Alexa power supply, and I've got the other one on the tone control boards because they were quite sensitive to audio noise. Next is an audio isolator that I put in here. It didn't make any difference really. I tried this on the audio line, but most of the interference that you hear is being picked up on the power line. So I will have to revisit that at some point because the isolators haven't eradicated it completely. But yeah, this audio isolator is still in there, but it's actually not doing anything. That's between the tone control board and the bass input on the amplifier. Other items I fitted in this boombox before this video started are the Amazon Echo Dot, the LEDs on the front panel for the Echo Dot. We've got the mute LED and the 5 volt power supply for the Echo Dot. That's the 12 volt to 5 volt power supply, and the little board for the left level meter, just to make that stereo level meter on the front. So that completes all of these parts that are in this machine. The parts in red there, if you want to see how they're fitted, then I will put the link in down below for those other videos, because that's been covered in a different one. That's pretty much the end of this video now. There are a couple of little bits that I want to address, and I will do that at some point. One of them, the main thing, is the interference on the 12 volt power line. That's still apparent. It's much better than it was with those isolators, but it is still there. So I need to address that. And yeah, I don't know what to do next really. I do like this boombox, and this is the second one that I've upgraded. A bit more on this one than the other ones, but I wonder what I could do next. Perhaps I will do a Mark III and do something different with that one again. But But I hope you've enjoyed this video. It's been a long one and there's been a lot in it, but hopefully you found it interesting. And maybe you're looking to do some or all of this upgrade on your boombox. If you do, let me know in the comments. I'd be interested to hear what you're doing with the ones that you've got. I'll just leave you now with a last little look around this, and thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Ziggy, play Spotify.
Okay, here's Spotify.